Do you know what I noticed most about the current state of comic book movies in 2025? I noticed that the same reasons that some people are still excited for these movies also happen to be the reasons that I cringe at the thought of another superhero movie. And you could respond to that like a lot of people do and say, well, just don't watch them or don't even talk about them. But that doesn't make sense to me either, because it's not like I'm saying that these movies cannot exist. I'm simply saying that if they are going to exist, then why not just make them better? Let's discuss.
Our content sucks. Our content sucks.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
So Spider-Man Brand New Day is quickly becoming one of those movies where I see massive red flags going up every single time I hear a new rumor or news item about this film. The thing that has stuck out the most to me as it pertains to the rumors about this film is the sheer amount of characters that could potentially be in it. Because I ask myself and all of you again, when did that strategy become the norm? When did people get it into their heads that somehow by adding more characters, it will make the movie better? Because that has never been the case in the history of comic book movies.
It's true.
I come from a time when we used to heavily criticize superhero movies for adding too many unnecessary characters to existing franchises because it did, in fact, make those movies feel overstuffed, messy, and rushed. There's only so much screen time in one movie to establish the how and why these characters exist in this story. There was a time where adding too many characters was just looked at as a bad creative decision that happened once in a while. Sometimes a decision that was forced upon the movie by the studio because they felt like bigger was always going to be better. Now it's become just a straight up gimmick that these movies lean on as a way of distracting people from the fact that they are probably watching a below average movie. And I do think that that's the difference. Sometimes mistakes happen, and hopefully you learn from those mistakes. But Hollywood seems to have learned all of the wrong lessons from their past failures.
I didn't know you. It's Hollywood, baby. Who knows what's gonna happen?
I genuinely do not understand why I personally should be excited at the prospect of seeing Spider-Man on screen with the Punisher or the Incredible Hulk, because we've had little to no build to those interactions thus far. Just having them exist on screen together with no real rhyme or reason feels very lazy to me. It actually feels desperate. It absolutely feels like Marvel once again trying to mask their creative deficiencies. The truth is that they had no idea where to take these characters creatively, so thanks to the success of movies like No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine, now their solution seems to be just do a team-up movie because people seem to enjoy that still, and that's what we are now going to get until the end of time with these movies.
It's been 84 years.
One of the most intriguing aspects of No Way Home was not the multiverse and not even the cameos from other Spider-Man actors. It was the ending of that movie and what it potentially set up as it pertains to the future of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. You see, at the end of that movie, he was finally legitimately on his own. Nobody knew who he was, and I thought to myself, perhaps foolishly, that this is where they establish him as the hero he should have been from the beginning. I thought that we were finally going to get to see the character of Spider-Man that we all know and love. And what did Marvel Studios and Sony Pictures do? They pissed that opportunity away the first chance that they got. And they immediately threw a bunch of characters, both heroes and villains, into his very next movie. Basically making the ending of No Way Home completely useless and meaningless. But people don't seem to care because cameos.
Something very familiar about all this.
This is not how you tell stories. This is how you build theme park attractions with cheap thrills that leave no lasting impact on you. Martin Scorsese was right again. And I'm sorry, you can call me toxic and negative all you want, but for my money, The character of Spider-Man deserves much better. You should not have to resort to gimmicks to get people interested in a movie about one of the most recognizable characters in the world. And if that is what you are doing, to me that means that the people in charge are not doing their job. I saw another rumor today that said how Spider-Man Brand New Day will reportedly be like a comic book brought to life. Something else that tends to excite people about these movies but sends a shiver down my spine. And why, you ask? Because I have rarely seen that translate into what I would consider to be a great comic book movie. To me, it's more of that surface level satisfaction that somebody over there at Marvel is trying to sell us on.
I'd buy that for $1.
I cannot stress this enough. Comic books and movies are two completely different mediums and should be treated differently. If I wanted to see a page-by-page adaptation of a comic book, I would just go read a comic book. A movie in a perfect situation is hopefully artistically appealing to me in a very different way. Of course, you're going to take inspiration from the source material. That's a given, and that should always be the case. But at the end of the day, all I really want to see out of a movie is something that is a bit more cinematically appealing, and a comic book brought to life doesn't necessarily guarantee that. Again, some things that work in comics do not work in live action. Let me put it this way. A lot of people were saying the exact same thing about James Gunn's Superman, and look how that turned out. A movie that is completely devoid of its own unique cinematic identity.
Not impressed.
You see, when you watch the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, they are unapologetically Sam Raimi. They are taking the character of Spider-Man and telling a story about him through Sam Raimi's lens. It's all Sam Raimi's interpretation of those characters and stories, and that is what we love about those movies. Nobody has ever watched the MCU Spider-Man trilogy and said, yup, that's definitely John Watts' work. And that's because those movies were very specifically created to fit into a larger cinematic universe. And that is exactly why they lack their own unique cinematic identity. And let us not forget that those movies were also praised early on for being more comic accurate. Something that I will personally dispute to the day that I die, because I don't feel like those movies truly understood the character of Spider-Man in any way. But again, for a lot of people, those movies delivered surface level gratification. And it feels like Marvel Studios and Sony Pictures is heading down the exact same path with this proposed new Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy.
No, don't like that.
Different directors, same approach. Filmmaking by committee is the way over at Marvel Studios. Instead of taking the opportunity to establish this version of Spider-Man in his own self-contained story like a lot of people were hoping for.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.